Hello everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we have a brand new trailer for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This appears to be the third proper trailer for this game. It is titled Into the Still World, A Journey Continued. So we're going to be going through this trailer, breaking it down and analyzing every little detail we notice. It's a lot, and it's very exciting. So that's what we're getting into today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So the trailer pretty much starts off with scenes we've already seen before, if not in the trailers on the website and such. We get a little bit more of an expanded look of the throne room and the king as he pushes away Zelda and his attendants fall into the rift with him and they become these petrified-like statues. We've seen this all before, but it's only just a few short seconds into the trailer where things start to get extremely interesting. Because we basically continue off of the prior trailer where Zelda was entering this rift. And here they have this nice little piece of art, and it says, Navigating the Still World. So this world that we're exploring, this other realm, something that we've compared to the Dark World before, they are calling it the Still World. Why might that be? Well, let's take into consideration that every character that we've seen fall into this world grays out into some sort of petrified-like statue and is still. Now, the one exception to this is Link, and I think this does tie into both gameplay and story stuff, which we'll dive a bit further into later on. But just looking at this piece of art, there are some interesting things I already noticed. First off, we see the castle in the background, and we do see that the castle is something that falls into the rift, but there is this interesting light that is coming from the castle at the very top. Is that just like a window and maybe the sun is shining through behind it? I think it's something else, and it gets me thinking about how Hyrule Castle was functioning in Breath of the Wild, how we saw light coming from that and Calamity Ganon was there. There might be some sort of similarity. But on the note of Breath of the Wild, something that I do notice here in the art is off into the background we see what appears to be a still world version of a Lionel. Yes, that is a Lionel back there. Now, we have seen Lionels in prior top-down Zelda games, but they've been recently redone with the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom entries into the 3D versions of Zelda games. And now we're seeing it in Echoes of Wisdom, which is another top-down Zelda game, but given the improvement in visuals and the little bit more they're playing around with perspective, this is definitely a whole other new look for a Lionel as well, and, well, this is going to be a tough enemy. Now the question is, will this enemy function like just a tough, typical enemy, or is it going to feel kind of like a boss fight, or an overall boss fight as we were talking about in literally yesterday's video? Could there be some overall bosses throughout the world of Echoes of Wisdom? That remains to be seen. But some other cool details we notice in this shot right here, we can see what appears to be, well, one of the Knights of Hyrule that has been petrified in the Still World. And then here's just a nice cool look of the Bokoblin and some really nice art of Princess Zelda. And that's pretty much it for this scene, except, well, there are these dark blobs that are flying around that I do think have some sort of living likeness to them. They're not just nothing. There's something to them, and I think we see them a little bit later into the trailer, so we'll get to that as well. We get a really good look of the still world here, and there are just some things I really like about what we're seeing here. It's clearly like showing off the environment, but just the angle of it, the perspective, they're really playing around with this in Echoes of Wisdom, which I appreciate. It's a great way to show more of the world and the beautiful art style they're using this time around. I really enjoy it, but something I'll point out is that you'll notice that there is a little bit of these orange highlights or outlines throughout. It reminds me a little bit of what we saw behind Hyrule Castle, and it kind of gives me a little bit of a Twilight Realm vibe from, yes, Twilight Princess. Is it just a similarity? Probably, but I'm mentioning it because it's at least interesting. Oh, take a look at this. So this is one of those blobs I was talking about earlier. It's just moving around. It's probably an enemy that we have to deal with in the still world. We get a closer look at one of the petrified civilians of Hyrule. Here Try says, when people get pulled into the rifts, they kind of petrify and can't move anymore. Okay. And if they stay that way, they'll eventually fade away. So we gotta do something about that. And I've actually thought that there might be a way to clear these areas, and then these areas would go back to normal in typical Hyrule, and then these NPCs will be restored and no longer petrified, and thus you can interact with them, perhaps unlocking different items or side quests, or what have you. We get to see some platforming here, which I like. There's more platforming in this game. Now that she can jump around, that's pretty valuable. And this part is actually very interesting to me. So why do you think that is? Well, I'll tell you. So she uses the table to then get onto the box, to then get onto the tree, varying levels of elevation. That makes sense. But at first, when I saw this, I was wondering, well, why can't she just use the box to continue going? And it occurs to me she's using the bed as a bridge because it connects to the tree and it goes long ways. It may be the case that had she used the box, it would fall down this hole here, or whatever, this entire vast expanse of nothingness, or the still world. So there might be some gravity mechanics at play here. We haven't seen too much of gravity mechanics, but we have seen some pretty sophisticated physics in this game, so it wouldn't surprise me. It also occurs to me that since the box is not as long as the bed, using the bed would simply be more efficient from a resource perspective.
Massive dungeons can also be found deep within the still world.
So right here, at this point in the trailer, they confirm dungeons. They literally say massive dungeons. The use of the adjective massive gets me very excited. Obviously, it's a hype word, and maybe they're exaggerating, but why even say massive? I think maybe because some of these dungeons are going to be pretty large, and that's exciting. And from what we see here, it's looks like the ruins just like in the beginning of the first trailer, and everything here kind of just seems pretty par for the course from what we've seen so far.
Confront challenging bosses who await her arrival.
Challenging bosses is what they refer to this guy as, so that's also very interesting. And here we actually get to see the boss fight and how Zelda deals with it. She has to use her echoes to hit what we assume will be the weak point. That all makes sense. I think it's funny that she falls onto the bed here, which we have seen evidence that this does restore some of your hearts, at least to 3. So it's kind of curious that she's doing that now in the middle of a boss fight, but of course, if you can get away with it, you can get away with it. Oh, that's actually neat. When the boss slams down, it is stuck here. So it looks like you move around and you find opportunities to use your different echoes to attack the very obvious weak point, and it seems pretty easy to get to given that there's nothing on this left side of the boss, or its backside. Whoa. So this is just crazy because we are seeing just like things that are not in the normal angle, right? Like this would normally be the floor in the typical world of Hyrule, but it's been turned around, and so it's different. Whoa, there's several things here that I'm noticing that are kind of crazy. Okay, all right, those are just eyes. All right, good. Now here's this super crazy part. All right, so this scene is extremely important. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. That right there, that is a boss key chest, and the reason that is a big deal is because that essentially confirms that dungeons, the way they worked in prior Zelda games before Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, well, they seem to be returning here, or at least some elements of them, because we are seeing a boss key chest. That bodes extremely well. So they're bringing back a lot of that traditional Zelda dungeon feel. Amazing stuff. She created that amazing platform. That's fun. Okay. Yeah, that was a new item that we hadn't seen before. That's like it's just a platform that moves. Oh, okay. I mean, that's what it is. It reminds me a little bit of some of the Zonai items you saw in Tears. This is probably the water dungeon. It's a big fish on the wall. And I mean, it's clearly a water dungeon because we even see... It's in the Rift World is what I mean, because we see the purple specks in the air. So that's interesting. Also, there's like this jellyfish baronade-like thing. So there's a good chance we collected this in this water dungeon. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What is this? Sword fighter form. Yep. People have been asking for it, and it's happening. Zelda finds Link's sword. Seemingly. This appears to be happening in a ruin or a dungeon in the Rift World because you see the purple sparks there, which makes sense because Link was lost in the Rift World and maybe he left the sword behind, potentially. And she transforms into basically Link, but with her head. And she's wearing the green hood too. That's cool stuff. And she has Link's abilities. So this is actually extremely interesting that they're doing this, because we've already seen from the ESRB that there's a strong implication that Link is playable. And from what we've seen for the first trailer, it looks like the beginning of the game we'll actually get to play as Link a little bit, but it would be weird to play as Link, have that kind of gameplay, and then take it away from us for pretty much most, if not the entire rest of the game. So to give us this ability to allow us to play as essentially Link or like Link throughout the game makes more sense. Yep, and she's got typical abilities I actually really like. I mean, there's nothing too crazy there. It's just kind of a close-up shot of her fighting it, but we get to see her holding the shield, which is just nice seeing this kind of footage up close. Yeah, we can battle alongside your echoes. Notice how this Bokoblin here has a shield and a weapon, and it has 4 triangles, so it takes a lot of resources to use, but what's super cool is that even though you can have this expensive echo, you can still transform into your Mighty Sword mode and help out. Cool stuff here. So it's almost like a magic meter, it looks like. When you're using this, the meter goes down, and notice how it says level 1, so I assume that you'll be able to build this up and have higher levels and thus have a bar that lasts longer, and maybe also your strength and defense can increase as well. We've seen strength and defense increase with Link himself in prior 2D Zelda games, so it could function something like that. Maybe there's not like 17 levels or something, it might be like 1 through 3 levels, essentially matching like the different improvements to tunics and swords as we've seen, again, in prior 2D Zelda games. I think it's important to have something like this because the core aspect of Zelda gameplay, or Echoes of Wisdom gameplay, is to use all these other abilities, right? So if you can just use your sword ability the entire time, that might take a little bit away from it. It would take away from Zelda's identity as more of a spellcaster. So having it available is good because it gives people that option to use the sword stuff, which a lot of Zelda fans will like, but it still limits it and still allows Zelda to keep her identity, which I also appreciate. And notice that we see the sword mark right here. So we've been speculating that the D-pad buttons would be pertaining to different abilities. Just one of them is Zelda's Tri-Rod, which has to do with the bind abilities and the echo abilities. But here we have a second ability, it's a sword ability. But what about the other two? Well, we'll speak a little bit more on that later into this video. So they show that you can collect the little blue pieces of, I guess, energy to restore your sword mode in the Rift World. It's not in the normal world, which I think will also help to balance just how often you are using this ability. You're not meant to be using it all the time, just occasionally. That makes sense to me. Dampé makes his grand return, and he seems to be the incredible inventor this time around. So these things are called automatons, okay, and there's a whole bunch of them. He continues to make them, and that's going to give us a whole bunch of different options. Wow, that one just blows up. Oh, this one creates music? That's so cool. Okay, yeah, of course. They're basically like summons, a different kind of summon, I guess. Something I'd like to point out is that you'll see here the little gear symbol. It's right there, right? This is for the automatons. So the third special D-pad button ability is the automaton. So you have your Tri-Rod, your Mighty Sword ability mode, and then the automatons. That makes tons of sense. I wonder what the final one is, though. We still don't know. However, what I will say, as we learn more and more about Zelda's different abilities and how she seems to be getting them at different points in the game, this may be suggesting that this game has a greater sense of linearity compared to Breath and Tears. While there does seem to be a greater sense of openness, we might be looking at more of a hybrid here compared to open-air Zelda and old traditional Zelda. We see different NPCs here, but something I like to point out in this particular scene is that the sword here in the background is sparkling. It stands out from everything else, so I kind of figure we're going to be able to grab this. It's even lit up here. Like, maybe it's just there for show, but I kind of really doubt it. I'll also notice we see what almost looks like kind of like a Ganon symbol or an enemy symbol here. Could just be just for show, but there might be something evil going on here. Actually, look at this. What kind of text are we seeing here? It's just she walks in, right? And oh, are you a new recruit? That's all they say, but these might be like Yiga. Actually, notice his bandana here. He's also wearing this evil symbol. And now that I'm thinking about it more so, this looks kind of like a dojo. Something that has a little bit of that culture. There's even this katana, kind of something that we might see used by a Yiga clan member. Guys, I think that these are Yiga in disguise. You've already seen that there are Sheikah that still have the ninja-like ability. So if there are the Sheikah that have the ninja-like ability from Breath and Tears, clearly in this game, then maybe there can also be Yiga. And with what we're seeing here, I almost feel like saying Yiga confirmed. But at this point, just what I think is a fairly good theory. Okay, so this here is a landing pad for this glider scene. We've seen this guy in the key art. There has been a reference to gliding around from the Goron village high up in the mountain. I don't know if we start that game here and it leads to this, or if this is an entirely separate event. Here we see the throne room to the Gerudo tribe. Don't see much else to say on this one, but she has her own attendant, and we have someone that's attending us. It appears to be a Gerudo warrior. I wonder if this is also an important character. I'm not sure, but there is some variety to the different designs here, and that is nice to see. This Goron with red hair talking about fireworks. They are bursting with color, spirit, and craftsmanship. Huh. I wonder if this person has anything to do with maybe changing the color of your clothes, perhaps? Could be something to that idea. Cute kitty. Kitties are cool. I love this scene. Love it. Alright, so this is clearly a great fairy, and I think this is straight up in the island that's the Pond of Happiness. So this is a location we've seen in prior top-down Zelda games in that lake area. I'm showing it right here. And even in prior Zelda games, this room is depicted with a little fountain in the middle and two fairy statues to the left and right, just like this. So I think that, yeah, this is probably the Pond of Happiness, and this great fairy is going to give us some sort of power-up. Okay, so here we see several things. This goop thing is chasing you, and you do get attacked, and oh, okay, so it hits you and it creates other enemies. That is interesting. I will say that over here in the top right, we see what appears to be another type of bokoblin character. Okay, it's got like the little wooden bat. That's neat. Here we see a whole bunch of the Still World enemies right in the Castletown area. It looks like, or yeah, it looks like the outer reaches of the Castletown where Hyrule Castle was taken over. And something I think is cool to note here is that when we have the sword mode actually going, right? We can see that it's lit up here, but the other two are faded out. You just see the option to use your sword and nothing else. So I figure that how it works, right? In order to summon an echo, as we see right here, you would have to summon the echo first and then shift into sword mode. You can't do both at literally the same time. You have to use one or the other, but if there's an echo remaining from beforehand, or maybe also an automaton, which I imagine will function in a similar way, then you can do that. Now, what I'm really curious on is if you can summon an echo, then summon an automaton, and then go into your sword mode. If we can see 2 stacking, perhaps they could do more. Considering that they were very willing to stack a whole bunch of these Sage abilities in Tears of the Kingdom, they may want to continue to go in this direction of just doing all these crazy things all at once, but only time will truly tell. We see more of Zelda being able to run on the trees. Now, you may not have seen this before, this option to do this. We talked about this in the website tour analysis, and in the website, we had already seen examples of Zelda jumping on different varying elevations of Hyrule. So you can pretty much go everywhere. If you can see it, you can go there. So that's pretty awesome. This game is, in a sense, open air, kind of like Breath and Tears, but in a top-down perspective. Alright, I love just seeing this. There's nothing too crazy here. It's just a snowy area. Now, we know that there are 2 different mountainsides, right? There is the Goron Elden Volcano area, and then we have what we assume is the Hebra region. And I'm assuming that's what this is. It's a cold, mountainous region. And we have a cool cutscene playing here. So what's going on in this area? Could there be another tribe? Perhaps this is where the Rito live? We haven't seen any confirmation of them yet, but maybe they're in this game. Giant lake. More cool platforming in the still world. We can glide with cuckoos. That's not too surprising, but it's still cool to see. You can hide in pots. Also kind of expected from what we've seen of the pot gameplay beforehand. This is interesting. So she's holding this little goopy guy here, and it's raining, and it looks like it's getting bigger. So could it be that it's absorbing the water around you? I think so. Also, not that this should come as any surprise, but this frog character is very clearly a frog character. We talked about how this is a singing frog, which reminds us of some of the singing frog minigames from Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask, but there was maybe some level of uncertainty if it was truly a frog, and now it's like blatantly clear that it is absolutely some sort of frog variant. You can collect fairies, and then she touches it, and it instantly is in a bottle, so there's no like bottle catching action. It just happens all at once, it looks like there. Do we even see like some sort of animation if we're pulling out a bottle? No, she just nabs it, and when she lands, there you go. It's in the bottle. Okay. Cool. There's horse racing mini games. Awesome. Here's a crab echo, which is cute to see. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What are we looking at here? What is this? Looks like a giant lava dragon in the still world. And my first immediate thought is this game's depiction of Volvagia. There it is, in all its glory. His long serpentine-like body, his lava erupting powers. Yeah, I mean this is Volvagia. Like, I have no doubt. He even has a cool jewel. This could be a boss for the fire area. It might just be that simple. I guess what's kind of interesting is that it doesn't necessarily look like it's a dungeon. It could just be one area of a dungeon at the very end where you fight the boss and it has this layout like this so you can be moving around. Or maybe it's an overworld boss in the still world. That's possible. But we got one more scene here. Who is this? Oh, look! Link. Princess Zelda has finally found Link. It's all good. The day is saved. Wait! No! That's not Link! That's evil Link! And he goes for his jump attack. Man, that's ruthless. Well, why would you be attacking your girl like that? But obviously, this is Dark Link, right? So the theories are confirmed based off the key art we saw in Evil Link, or an angry-looking Link, and yep, that's an angry-looking Link right there. This might even be a possessed version of Link, actually, and that's what I find most interesting. So if I want to see if I can get a look at the sword hilt here, because it looks like the same sword hilt that Zelda collects. I can't see the double swirl. It looks like it's just a single swirl. So I'm not sure on what's going on with the sword, but what I will say is that the red eyes remind me of the red eyes that Ganon also has as well. It may be the case that both of them are possessed by an other party involved here. I don't think the final bad is Ganon, or it might be, but it also might not be. There might be some puppeteering going on. as has happened in prior Zelda games in the past. And that is my initial analysis for this third proper trailer for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. We are less than a month away from this game's release. More and more information is going to be coming out about this game, and I will be on top of it, talking about it, theorizing on it all, analyzing every detail. So stick around if you're interested, but also please let me know what you think of what we discussed today in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.